shout out Owen's Exhibit, the #1 podcast on the internet.
Welcome everybody back to the podcast. It's been a while. It is 2024. Last time I recorded, it's been a while. That's the point. But we're back, and I'm going to be joined by guests. But before we get into that, I want to give you a rundown. If you are new to this podcast is about talking to creatives, talking to entrepreneurs, really diving into how they got to where they are, what challenges they faced, and then asking them how they've impacted the world around them. So for me personally, I am somebody who wants to start a business, and it's helpful not only for myself, but for other people like me to get this advice and guidance. And it's no better than to get this advice and guidance from people like Kawaun here. He's going to give you an introduction of who he is and what he does.
Thanks for having me. My name is Kawaun Love. I'm the founder and the creative director of the supermarket company, and we are operating out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you some icebreaker questions. They might be funny, they might be hard, but just do your best to try to answer them. So, first question is, how has your life changed in the last year?
Well, the last year I had a son, so that's a big change for me in the last year. I already have a daughter, so this is like now having 2 kids. I will call myself like a kind of like a super dad. So that's the biggest change, and that's how like my life changed in the last.
Wow, I mean,
last year,
taking on a new mouth to feed, taking on a new person to really bring into this world, and hopefully bring them up in the best sort of way. That's definitely something that changes everything for you. So that's incredible, and I hope everything goes smooth with that, as smooth as it can go.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
Good luck with that. And what is one word that your friends would use to describe you?
I would say I don't want to say independent, because independent is something that I would describe myself as. I think my friends would describe me as reliable.
Reliable. I could see that. I just noticed we both have cardigans on today.
Yeah.
Anything particular you want to break down about your fit? Because I know you gifted me this hat, so we're gonna be able to fully twin it out. But what's going on?
Well, with the cardigan, I just thought it matched great with the shoes.
Got some Doc Martens on.
Yeah.
Those are painted.
Yeah. So I thought it would match great with the shoes, and I was going for like a kind of like a casual aesthetic coming to New York,
And this shirt is by your company.
Yes, it's one of my favorite like pieces from the company. One of my favorite shirts from the company. This is the Milk and Honey T-shirt.
Break it down for us. Where'd that idea come from?
Well, the idea came from first it started out as a 2-part shirt. So it was a green shirt and more of a golden color shirt. And the idea is from, America is called the land of milk and honey. So the green was representative of land, and the gold was representative of gold, which would be the milk and honey. But we transitioned it into a shirt with a woman and a man. The woman is the honey and the man is the milk, and it's just like, it just shows the relationship of man and woman,
Mm-hmm.
So that's the breakdown of it now. Like it transformed from one idea into another idea.
Yeah. There's so much, I guess I would say, like, history, but also so much storytelling, and in the items that you put out, I've noticed like lots of different things, and we'll get into them. So definitely I would have never taken that meaning from this shirt that you just basically explained to us. So I think that's incredible. And then you got the hat on. What's the significance?
It's an ode to Jackie Robinson. I don't know if you ever seen like the
Dodgers.
Back in the day, like how they would have the green underbrim, which is like kind of like the vintage look, with the navy blue. So this will be the Dodgers color, and the S is like stands for the supermarket, but the side of it is like a ode and like a homage to Jackie Robinson.
I was just at the museum probably 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think it's something that not a lot of people like talk about in New York
Yeah.
City, like going to the Jackie Robinson Museum.
Yes.
It was incredible. Also, like in Pittsburgh, went to the Roberto Clemente Museum. So like to hear about those guys' journey from like going into the major leagues and also just like also their time in the war and whatnot. It's just it's so crazy to hear about their stories, and it's cool that you're doing your piece to pay tribute to them.
Yeah, and a lot of our pieces are like heavily like incorporated with history of America, because like we pride ourselves in being like an American brand.
Definitely. My next question for you is, what's a winter must-have clothing item?
Definitely a sweater.
What type of sweater?
Any knit, like a knitted sweater, like a knitted sweater and a beanie.
Got you. Definitely. You got to make sure you have those so that you can layer up.
Yeah.
Throw a jacket on over top, and then when you head inside, you just take that off.
And it puts the fit together. It like puts like kind of like the cherry on top of the fit. As far as like you can wear whatever type of jeans, whatever khakis, but as the knitwear that you choose really throws on like your fit as far as with the winter time.
Completely. Yeah. I have a sweater that if I could, or if like I felt comfortable with it, I'd wear it every day. It's just my favorite sweater. It's so cool. What would you say is some tips for styling a sweater? Because really the only thing I can think of is like throwing the collar on and then like putting it over top of the sweater so that it peeks out.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything else?
Sometimes a sweater on top of a sweater. So if you'll have a sweater and then you'll take another sweater and wrap it over top and kind of like tie the arms together. And that's another way to like give it your own like twist, but also still have the essence of, okay, this is like the winter time and let me try something different. Like it's a different type of being versatile basically.
Yeah, no, that's new to me, so I'll have to try to do that, pile on the sweaters, make sure I can look good in it. So next question is, what's something out of your comfort zone, something you haven't tried before that kind of is pushing it? Maybe you've thought about it, maybe you haven't.
Out of my comfort zone, that's a good question. Just getting in front of the camera more, and being in front of the camera is something that is like, it's not difficult, but it's something that it's like it's kind of like a thing where I'm like self-conscious about it,
Right. Yeah. We did just do a quick little, I don't know what you want to call it, we'll call it a promo video, but basically I'm going to put this out there on YouTube. We went into the deli, you got your favorite snacks. What snacks were those?
Plantain chips and strawberry kiwi mystic.
Dope. Yeah. And he's actually going to let me try it out, so I'm going to have to get back to him, tell him good or bad.
What you think about it,
Definitely. What do you put on a sandwich?
It's a lot of things to put on a sandwich, but my favorite thing to put on a sandwich will probably be cucumbers, lettuce, tomatoes. If it's a turkey sandwich, sometimes bacon. I put that on there. It's this sandwich at Wawa that I really like. That's it's called the turkey veggie ranch sandwich. Has bacon on it, the cucumbers, everything that I named, and on wheat bread as well.
So I'm not from the East Coast, but we had a Wawa on our campus, obviously, and we'd always go there, and I'm not a fan of Wawa. Yeah. So help me understand I'm a 7-Eleven person, so help me understand what's the pull to Wawa.
Wawa is kind of like 7-Eleven would be like no offense, like a H&M, and Wawa would be kind of like a Louis Vuitton of like convenience stores. Because you can go to Wawa and everything you get from 7-Eleven you can get from Wawa, but Wawa makes those handmade sandwiches, those cappuccinos.
They got somebody carefully crafting whatever you're about to buy. Yeah, instead of someone like back there at a factory, turning out sandwiches.
Right, and then you just have to because at 7-Eleven you can get a breakfast sandwich, but you have to put it in the microwave, which is kind of like an industrial looking microwave, and they tell you, okay, put this in here for 1 minute or two, But at Wawa, you can type it in on touchpad, and someone will make the sandwich for you.
Okay.
It's kind of just it tastes more like fresh.
Better service.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it. But I'm gonna tell you, the jalapeno taquito tacos, taquitos from 7-Eleven, those are definitely.
I gotta try that. Sure. And I don't knock 7-Eleven because I was like heavy into eating at 7-Eleven, but once you try Wawa, it's like it's kind of like you can't really go back to like a 7-Eleven.
Right. You've had your taste of the good side of things. So, do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have 2 sisters and a brother.
And where do you fit within that range?
I would be the oldest.
The oldest.
Yeah.
And are you close with them?
Very close.
Very close.
Very close.
Would you say any of them share the same sort of ambitions or same sort of interests as you?
Yeah, well, everyone has their different things that they're into and they like, but somehow it brings it all together. Like, so, like, I like designing clothes, and I have a sister who likes doing hair, and I can get her to use her talent to join what I have going on when it comes to like campaigns or photo shoots, stuff like that. And I have another younger sister. She's in college, but she also is into photography. So I can get her to do like behind the scenes stuff just so she can get a feel of like what's going on as far as on a photo shoot, on a set, you know?
Right.
And then I have a brother, but he's into like security. So eventually I want to do like runway shows. I can get him to lead a security team on a runway show. So that's how my mind is when it comes to what they're into and involving it into what I have going on.
It sounds like you're really connecting the dots and you really want to involve all of them, which is incredible. One thing we touched on for a second is the fact that you listen to Next Gen. Yeah. And I know a question that comes in often is... Sorry. Sorry, I'm just taking...
Sorry.
I thought it was my roommate, so I was like, wait, I'm going to let them come in. So one thing we talked about for like a brief second was Next Gen, and that's a podcast that I listen to, and you mentioned that you listen to it. And a question that comes up very often is like, how have your parents basically influenced or kind of promoted your pursuits? Yeah. And how would you answer that question?
Well, I'll say that my parents, based on how their life, like watching their life growing up, that's what promoted or basically gave me my drive. So my mom, like, she's like a hardworking woman, so she would work hard, and that's what gave me my, I guess the trait of working hard. My dad, he's like a intellect, so that's what gave me the idea of, okay, I'm into books as much as my dad, and I just like I have a hustle like my mom and my dad, and the intellect of my dad.
Got you. Last question to round out the icebreakers is, what's your biggest fear?
Biggest fear is what would be my biggest fear? That's a great question as well. Biggest fear is not looking like a superhero to my kids. You know, like everyone, especially us growing up, we looked at our parents as like a superhero in an instance. You know, like, and that's my biggest fear. Like, I want my kids to always like look to me as for guidance, look to me as like, okay, any time I need any advice or any help or anything, this is the person I can like call on. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So your vision is to have your kids look at you almost as a friend, as a bigger, older friend that
mentor,
can encourage and support them.
Yeah, friend, a mentor, and just someone who will always be there for them, like in any journey of their life, any part, whether they're 40 years old and I'm, walking with a walker, they can still look to me like, okay, I can go to him to get this type of knowledge or this type of like, guidance.
That's a really good outlook to have. because I don't know if you want to touch on it, but if you do look up to someone more as like a superhero, you might feel that they have all the answers, or that they might judge you for what's right or what's wrong. But truly, if you're like, it should be more on the level of like, oh, okay, this person's still trying to figure out life too.
Yeah.
But they have more answers than I do. There's someone that's more experienced, and I can go to them and get their opinion on it. They might not necessarily have all the answers, but they can at least give me some insight in order to get me to maybe a better possible solution. So why would you say it's not as good of an option to have like a superhero as opposed to like that very like reliable friend?
Yeah.
Why would you say what's the difference?
The difference is like a superhero is you look at them like they can't do any wrong, but like with a friend it's like, okay, like just like you were saying, you're not feeling judged. You're feeling like you can like be unfiltered and you can be like your natural like self, you know? Mm-hmm. So
definitely. We did talk about that friend. Would you say there are people in your life right now, or that have been in your life, that you felt like they were your friend and they provided you with all the necessary, energy and advice that you wanted from them?
Yes. So like one person would be Shalise. We both run our company together, and she's someone who I can tell my ideas to, or tell my craziest ideas to, and she'll be like, okay, for this to work, this will have to happen, or maybe we should do this instead,
Right. So. How do you delegate tasks, or who's involved in the operations of your brand?
So me and Shalise, we're the main like designers. Like I'm more of a guy who's like I can design. Of course I can like cut and sew. I can do things like that. But she's more into like preparing the tech packs, anything with Photoshop. The photography side, I'm more of on the visual side as far as like doing the video campaigns, and we hire other talent. So whether it's models, whether it's like photographers, makeup artists, hairstylists, things like that.
Got you. I want to take it all the way back to the beginning of where it all started and where this idea came from. So if you can walk me through, maybe we even start as soon as like growing up in Brooklyn. Yeah. So you mentioned to me that you were born in Manhattan, raised here in Brooklyn. How long were you here for?
I was here from birth until about middle school. Yeah.
And that definitely provided you with more like different experiences and different things that you were interested in. Like you obviously saw things, met people.
Yeah.
And what would you say some of the biggest things that you took from that time period were?
Well, and New York, growing up in New York, especially like at that age, you grow up faster because of how fast-paced the city is, how big the city is, how long the city stays up at night. So I would give like a kind of like the picture of Hey Arnold. I don't know if you've ever seen Hey Arnold, and it's like everyone is hanging out on the porch with the stoop kid. That's how growing up in New York was. At a young age, everyone is all different ages, whether you're 5, 6, 7, 13, 17, everyone would hang out together. So a lot of growing up in New York is, and especially around diverse cultures, it really shapes and molds how the rest of your childhood would be. So going into Philadelphia from New York, it basically gave me a more advanced outlook on life, because Philadelphia gave me a chance to like actually slow down. It's more of a slower paced city, so it actually gave me a chance to slow down going out there, and as well as still have an advanced mind.
Mm-hmm. So you said you went to high school. Did you end up going on to do more learning after that, or did you go out and decide you wanted to get a job?
Yeah, so I went to Full Sail University in Florida.
Okay.
That's like kind of like I think a mile away from University of Central Florida in Orlando, and I stayed there for about a year. But then I ended up dropping out and leaving and coming back to New York for a little bit.
I want to know, what did you go for, and did you think that was what you would end up doing with your life?
I went for recording arts, and I used it a little bit because I'm great with video and audio. Like I was a video and audio technician, so I did good with that. But as far as like the college life, having to like at that college you have to like buy or rent like a apartment. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a dorm. So I was working overnights at Target around that time while leaving from there, going to school. So it's like the college life and dealing with finals and stuff like that, as well as working overnight. It was like, it took a toll on me. So I was like, yeah, this is like getting overwhelming. So
definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, Florida, that's a far way to travel.
Yeah.
Was recording arts, that was something you were really invested into?
Yeah, I was really into that, but also I wanted to like leave Philadelphia at the time just so I can like get into something different or get into a different area and like find myself as an adult at that time.
Mm-hmm. What did you want to do with recording arts?
Like engineer, like mix master, audio and visual work as well.
So were you doing any of that prior to going to school for it? Were you?
Yeah, with friends, like after high school, like, well, basically during high school, but like after school was let out, we would go and like hang out and like record and engineer, mix and master, stuff like that.
Were you what type of genres were you into?
Hip hop, R&B. Yeah.
What were you taking influence from? Any artists in particular? You said
around that time,
Baltimore, New Jersey club scene, but was that more of like the nightlife?
That was more of like
music.
That was
music?
more of like nightlife or just like hanging out, going to like parties and stuff like that.
Right. So what did you say you were trying to make? What type of music were you trying to make?
Like, so hip hop, but I was heavily influenced by like Kanye West and like Jay-Z, Drake, like those type of artists, and they were like they were out, but I think Drake, he was just coming up around that time, so that's what we listened to a lot. That The Weeknd, like those artists were like J. Cole as well. Those artists were just like putting out their first few mixtapes especially when Dat Piff was around. That's when we was able to get the first taste of like those artists.
Yeah, I mean, kind of share with me Dat Piff. I need a refresher.
Yeah, so Dat Piff it was a website where you can download like mixtapes for free, and they weren't mixtape. They were like basically albums, but so it was original music, but they would call them mixtapes, and those were for artists who were at that peak of like breaking through and becoming mainstream artists.
Okay.
You know, so The Weeknd, he had his first 3 projects on that platform. Drake, he had So Far Gone. That was on that platform as well before it became a mainstream project. So, and J. Cole, he had The Warm Up and Friday Night Lights. Those were on that platform, those platforms before they bubbled. And if you were on that platform, you were getting to that level of becoming a mainstream artist.
So we were talking about Dat Piff. I want to know, is that something that artists would do because it was something they could do independently? It didn't require a lot of investment and a lot of promotion? What was the reason that really was like the main platform to put your stuff on when you were bubbling?
It was like the most popular platform at that time. You know, like how SoundCloud had an era where you had your music on SoundCloud, you gain a following on there, and then that'd shoot you to like stardom. That was how Dat Piff was. It was like the number one platform to go to get all the new exclusive music. Like everyone would go there, and even certain artists who probably didn't make it to that point as far as like a mainstream artist, they would put their stuff on there, and you were looked at as like cool, basically, for having your stuff on there, because that's the number one platform.
That makes a lot of sense to me now. I do want to get back to more about you and your business that you're building. I think I want to touch briefly on these stories that you're telling. I read something about your brand is to be reflective of the modern lifestyle, but also bringing in these past, like almost your hereditary kind of story and whatnot.
Yes.
Do you want to kind of elaborate on like what these stories are that you're telling and why you're bringing them back?
Yeah, so I'm talking about when I say hereditary stories, I'm just talking about like Black American culture. And like I said earlier, I'm heavily on building a brand that revolves around American culture. We have a lot of brands that's out, but we don't have a lot of like American brands that's other than like Ralph Lauren, or I think like a Calvin Klein as well. But like the most popular ones are like Louis Vuitton, Dior, those type of brands. And my idea for what I'm doing is trying to incorporate those stories into the clothing as well, as far as like saying like talking about like a Jackie Robinson, or even something like like these sweatpants I have there, Sojourner Truth sweatpants. And I'm just trying to bring light to that, like as far as not these ones, but on my
The ones that you made, yeah.
So I'm just trying to bring light to that. I even have a Greensboro shirt with the 4 Greensboro the sit-ins. So I'm just trying to like incorporate that in a way where it's not too much on the side of telling the story, but it'll tell the story through the clothing. Or if you're wearing it and you decide to be like, okay, this is called the Greensboro shirt, I want to see I want to look more into what this piece means, you know. Like I'm just want to make like cool stuff, but also give kind of like a ode to certain parts of my history.
Yeah, I mean, even just looking at the clothing that you've put out, like the Tuskegee Airmen, like that was the first time I'm really hearing about this. So like, even like coming to Brooklyn, like I don't know if I'm sure you know, but like, you know, Do the Right Thing was filmed like a block away. So cool. And then like what Spike Lee does with like bringing up these historical points into films, like the Five Bloods. I don't know if you've seen that, but that was really like very informational and very like also a great story overall. So I guess the point I'm getting to is I want to talk about where this like came from, because I know that I read something about you wanted to start a brand that was educational for youth people in describing or like talking about like foods and stuff.
Yeah.
So what was that original idea, and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, it's crazy. That was the beginning stages of the brand. Our brand started out as a children's clothing brand to educate children on like different food groups, you know, to have a healthy and balanced diet. So that's how we started. That's why we named it the Supermarket Company. And as we like gradually started like building the brand and building the company, more adults were like, that looks like tough. I want that for myself, you know? And I was like, oh, we only have it for kids, but I can make it for you. And then we transitioned into, okay, it's more adults that are into what we're doing. So let's kind of like cater to that and like kind of like rebrand it into that, but just keep the same name, you know?
Right. And was the whole like idea pretty much formulated because you just had your daughter? Like what was even the motivation behind that?
So she was about to be born in a few months, and that was the idea of like starting that like for her, and it's also for something that can grow with her. That was the main objective of like starting the brand, because I want her to like see me into entrepreneurship and have like an interest in it.
Right.
You know, so
be able to be that figure that kind of guides the way, or at least gives them the impression that they can do whatever they want as long as they put their mind to it.
Yes.
Really invest into it and learn about it. So I guess I want to get to the point of you learning about the business side of it and the creative side of it. Once you started with this idea, were you already really establishing it as a business, or was it kind of more of a side thing that you were doing? Did you like go out there and you're like the supermarket line? I'm gonna trademark that. Like, what was your first move?
Yeah, well, the first move was I started it as getting the legal paperwork for it. So like as far as like the LLC, the operating agreements, the bank accounts. The trademark I recently, because like when you're doing trademarks, it takes like years for you to actually process a trademark.
It does. It takes years.
So with trademarks, you can file for a trademark. We filed for our trademark, I think, in 2020, and we recently got it in September of last year.
Okay.
Because you have to have like a trademark attorney look over it, and then you might have a office action, which is like a contest to your trademark, saying that we're using this trademark and or this company is using the trademark, and you would have to dispute basically and say that it's not like, so it's not confusing with someone else's like business.
Right.
So I had to do that, and that's like a long, like drawn out kind of like fight. And then once they approve it, then it's like, okay, it's yours, but also it's yours, and you have to keep years after keep like maintenance in it. Like, so you got to maintain it as far as like filing more paperwork so that you can keep the trademark.
Right. So someone attested that your name was similar, or at least like kind of, I don't know what it's, I don't like encroaching or like kind of attacking their thing.
It's kind of like
competing,
confusing with their trademark. So, and it's crazy because it's like Supermarket Sweep. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's like a TV show called Supermarket Sweep.
Okay.
And that was one of the like kind of like hurdles we were trying to get past as far as not being confused with the Supermarket Sweep, and also another company called the Supermarket, which is like kind of like a holistic like type of company.
Okay. And when you went in to wanting to trademark this name, were you already doing research? Like, is this name out there? Who has this name? Like, did you look through like the registry and you're like, oh, this name's not really attached to anything?
I didn't even do that because as I was just learning as I went,
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of the stuff that I learned, I either learned it from books or I learned it from like the internet, Even with the trademark, I didn't even hire like an attorney to do the trademark. I just like kind of did my research and like wrote up kind of like a response to the office action.
Yeah.
And was just like crossing my fingers and hoping like, okay, like I'm hoping I can be able to get this thing approved. And once I got it approved, it just boosted like my confidence in what I was doing. But even with the company, running the company, I'm more of on the financial side. I do creative things as well, as far as like I design and everything, but I'm more on the financial side as far as, okay, let me make sure the operating agreements are right, the manufacturing agreements when we do ship to manufacturers. And I'm the one who will contact different companies and make sure that, we have a credit line or we have these type of legal documents in order.
What's you said an operating agreement?
Yeah, so operating agreement would be something that you would get to you and whoever else owns the company with you. They would sign that agreement saying that you are able and you are in good standing to operate the company. Without the operating agreement, you can't open a business bank account or a business savings account. And those two things you need, and they're pivotal to like owning a company and building a company.
And this is in a partnership company? What type of company is this?
Yeah, so it's LLC, and it's LLC. Like a partnership, but whatever, even if you're like the sole owner of it, you would still need like these type of documents, especially if you want to get like business credit, like a line of business credit and stuff like that.
Did you immediately go into it thinking like, oh, I need to get credit for this? Like, what was how did you even get to the point where you're like, oh, we need credit? Was it like, oh, you were funding it on your own and then you realized, we're going to need to get some other money to really grow this thing?
Yeah, so I was using a lot of like my personal money like to get certain machines and stuff like that. So I'm like, I can still do this, but I would want to be able to fund it in a different way, which will be either our business bank accounts. Like we gradually went from personal money to the revenue from sales to credit. And with that, you use your personal credit to be able to get your business credit, but then it won't be attached to your personal credit after you are approved for the business credit.
Right. Were you just basically using like a credit card to pay for business expenses, or were you like almost telling them like, hey, I'm going to use this for this? Like, or was it just like you having a spreadsheet keeping track of like what's personal, what's business?
No, so with my personal income, because I was also like around the time working at a museum and doing audio visual at a museum. So I would take that money and, after I handle my personal expenses, I would use some of that to invest in what we needed to invest in for the company, whether it's like the product, whether it's the materials or the machines. But after a while, it's like, okay, we can, and I would hold on to every single dollar as far as of the business. And after that, I was like, okay, we need to use some of the business expenses, because another thing too, when you have LLC, you have to file like taxes as well. So you will want to have those expenses on your business tax, So we gradually transitioned into using that revenue, and then I started looking more into business credit, because a lot of people will get like kind of like an angel investor, or just any type of person that can invest into the company. But I said, let me try this way first before I feel like I need to let me go get a investor.
Okay, so just help me understand like the terms, like when you say credit, that's
Yes.
like that's money you have to pay back, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But with that, it's like so what I can say is like with the credit for my business. So I'm with like I have a Chase credit line, and with that credit line, they don't charge you interest until probably like after like a year or so. So what I would do is
so first year no interest.
Yeah, first year no interest, and right now I'm in the first year of using credit. So this whole time we're about to be, I guess, 5 years into building this company, and I recently got the credit over this last campaign I did.
Okay.
So with the credit, I use it, but I also keep that as an expense. That's the only expense I have. So I put everything on that card, and then I'll pay it before. Like, of course I'm paying it, but I'm taking advantage of that no interest for the year, and then from there put a different structure together for using that credit line.
Right. So like when you're investing into a collection and you have to put all this money up front, but you're not seeing any returns because the collection is not out yet, like you're taking up all that credit.
Yeah.
But then once you release the line, then you might be able to go and pay off this.
Yeah.
Even if it's like 3 months later.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
Yeah.
Because like when you scale a business, like a lot of the time, there's a lot of finance required in order to scale it. So when was the first you were kind of feeling those growing pains, and what was your immediate reaction to be like, oh, okay, we need to open this business credit line, or like how did you navigate that?
Yeah, so like using my personal finance, that's when, cause like when you're using your personal finance, you're sacrificing certain things to be able to put into your projects or what you have going on. So it's like, okay, I might have to go a month without having my phone right now, so I can be able to use some of that expense to put into, my collection.
Right. It's kind of like, well, there's this opportunity to go get money for this business rather than taking away from my personal entity, like my personal life and lifestyle. So
Right.
definitely just like the opportunity with owning a business, there comes, okay, you can open a credit line now for that business.
And then it's all about like gaining the knowledge as well. So with that, like, so that's why like gradually going from personal expenses to business expenses, like that's something like, say you go through that, okay, like let's see if I can find a way where I don't have to tap into my personal business or my personal finances. Let me start the budget on how I'm going to use the revenue from sales. Because at first, when I first started, the first 2-3 years, I wasn't touching the business revenue at all. I was like, we're not even going to touch this to buy a shirt, buy anything with it.
You were saving it? What
Saving
were you
it.
doing?
And I was just saving it. And I was saving it like, because I didn't know what to do with it or how to like maneuver with it, you know? So after a while, I'm like, okay, we're going to use some of this to work on our next collection, because I started like reading into what other like brands do, and they're like, okay, they use some of the revenue. Like, you're not always, basically, like a lot of brands say you're not always supposed to be, or you're not always going to be in green. You're going to be like even or a little under what you expect. But I was always trying to keep my company in green as far as with the revenue.
You went into it with that mindset?
Yeah.
You went into it.
Yeah, so that's why I was using personal finance. I said, whatever, it don't matter what's going on. I'm not touching the business revenue. I'm just going to use my personal finance to fund this. Even if I have to be like, okay, I'm not going to have this phone for this month or...
Yeah. Sounds like some like legal money laundering where you're just like, okay, put the money into the business, it comes back out, but we're not touching it because now it's clean.
Yeah.
So what you said, like, okay, you were looking at other businesses and they were doing it too. You obviously said you wanted to keep in the green.
Yeah.
So was it scary once you decided to tap into that? Were you kind of afraid to be like, oh, I'm taking a risk here, like we might end up in the red?
No, because after a while, I'm like, the risk was being weighed out with the outcome of like a collection, or the outcome of like investing it into something and then seeing like double or triple from that investment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it like, I think at first that's why I was using my personal finance, because I was like kind of like afraid of taking that risk of, oh, I'm using this business revenue for that. But I'm like, that's what it's for, you know, it's for that, you know.
Right. We talked about trademarks and we talked about the funding and financial side of it. Along that way too, was there anything else that really had you feeling anxious or really challenged you in a way? Because I know there's times for me where it might be slow and steady, and I have these things where it's like, maybe I get a no every once in a while, but in terms of like the business thing, things will like really ramp up quickly. Like you might have something that you have to get done now, or like you said, like with the approval for the trademark, like you had to go back and like attest or like say like, oh, this is why, you know, there's no confusion here. Like the supermarket, this is what it means to us. So like, don't worry about that. So was there anything else really that like popped up that was like kind of frantic or that you really had a challenge with?
I think probably like us having to, like, recently we had a Black Friday sale, and with the Black Friday sale, you know, you have to first you have to know, say like if you're doing like a pre-order, you have to know if your manufacturers are going to be able to deliver on time. You also have to know if you'll be able to ship on time, because everything is running on like a crazy like holiday schedule as far as like for Christmas time with shipping. Mm-hmm. So that's something that gets me like anxious and like nervous. I'm like, okay, I want to ship out either as early as possible, or I want to keep track of every tracking number to make sure everything gets to where it's supposed to get at the time that's supposed to get there.
Is that really just a communication and planning thing? How do you prepare for something like that? It
is, but it's also a thing where it's like, I don't think you can prepare for it, because it's like, it's unexpected, you know. It's an unexpected thing, but it just keeps you like kind of like anxious, but like kind of just hopeful of like, okay, I hope this can get where it needs to go, or I hope it doesn't get to a point where it's like it's taking longer than it's usually supposed to take, to where someone is like dissatisfied. But we haven't had anyone like that's dissatisfied yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I want to ask. We've had previous episodes. One question that I want to mention. I'll get to it, but first is like resources. Yeah. I had a previous guest, Samantha Harper, and she talked about email track. It's like this very simple thing. Like you just put it. It's a plugin for your email. It tells you like who opened it, how many times they opened it, maybe who they sent it to. Would you say there's any resources that you use that have really helped you in doing business? Maybe if it's like an automated system, or is there any tips or tricks that help you do what you do?
I heard that was a real useful tool, like, because I didn't even know about like the email tracker. But I would say just your data, like, and anything you do as far as any business, and data runs like the world. Like with data you can like figure out what your next move would be, you know, so you're not just like kind of like shooting in the dark at anything. So I would say like having a newsletter, like I'm heavy on like collecting emails or collecting like names and emails, so I can like really know who's who, you know, or not just know who's who, but like just have that community where I can be able to like make my next move from, like, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring this up. I guess really your recommendation are kind of like the resources, the newsletter, but also like newsletter management and like capturing those emails. So I would say analytics, like in that data also, are there any things that really reveal to you that you're successful, or what data points do you try to hit? I know you talked about like profit. Are there certain, also like with the, I'm going everywhere, but with the sale, like how do you determine the margin? I guess, is there anything in there that really you want to talk about?
Yeah, well with the data you can determine like where like a kind of like an influx of like traffic is going, but also you can determine what region is more or less like a part of what you have going on, a part of your brand.
Would you say geographical region, or what would you say?
So basically, like, I like to narrow it down to like states, then narrow it even more down to like cities, you know. Hopefully soon we'll have other like countries, but mainly it's like cities and states. Like I like, even when I'm doing like marketing or advertising, I advertise based on our analytics as far as like state, and then even a small like a more narrowed version of like marketing to certain cities in those states as well.
So when you narrow down to certain regions into certain cities, does that help you really understand who your target customer is in a way? In
a way, you know. I feel like the best way to understand who your audience is by seeing them like actually like put your stuff on like the internet and stuff like that. You can tell just based on the area, you can kind of get a sense of like who's your customer, but you won't really like truly know until you like see them wearing it, or you can see their name on your newsletter.
Right. And I want to ask, so with you figuring out who your target demographic is and then you targeting them, I want to go back to the analytics side of it. What do you think? I guess a lot of businesses, the most challenging part for them is understanding what all this information means.
Yeah.
A lot of them capture it. Like, I even know for myself, like, we're doing stuff with emails. It's like, how do we use these emails? So not specifically emails, but more so like the analytics. Like, what do you pull from all that stuff? What are the biggest telltale signs, or like what really helps you continue to improve your operations?
Well, age group and gender, it shows me what my strengths and weaknesses are, as far as like, especially when it comes to gender, for example. I know I heavily started focusing on menswear because we have a large like men's, like as far as like a community of like men. And like with this last campaign, I wanted to like cater more to like women's wear, or get more into women's wear, so that we can build that group up. Most of our sales come from like men, you know? But I want to like have it to where like it will basically, it shows your strengths. Our strength will be like in designing menswear, and our weakness will be, or I would say it's a weakness, but I would say it's something that we're working on, which would be women's wear. So tapping more into that. So
it's like opportunity. I know for me in school, we did these things called white space opportunities, where you would you do like a SWOT analysis, like strengths, weakness, opportunity, threats. Opportunity, threats are like more external things. I'm sure you know, but just to explain it to like the listeners, like opportunities, threats, that's like what's happening outside of the business. So like an opportunity could be this trend that's happening, whether it be like, okay, formal menswear is really big. Okay, how do we tap into that? And then a threat might be like, okay, the economic conditions right now, like maybe there's a recession, people don't have a lot of money to spend. Like, how can we reduce our prices? But just talking about that, it's like, okay, what opportunities out there for us, and what have we still not tapped into? So you talked about things with the women's wear side of things. Like you noticed you were doing really well with menswear, but you also noticed that, okay, there is this female audience out there, but we could also grow that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like doing your research, doing research with doing your homework with the research that you're provided through, you know, like your analytics.
Right.
And with that, it's like, like I was saying with women's wear, that's something we want to grow more on, based on, okay, we have a small bubble of women that, you know, do shop with our brand, but we want to make it to where it's more varieties and more products for them to like choose from.
Got it. What do you think would be more helpful for you moving forward in the future? Are there any analytics that you're really interested in diving into more? Or maybe do you want to entirely shift to like, okay, so we have this analytics, but maybe now we do something physical. Like we've noticed it's doing really well in this region. Maybe we even go out there, do a pop-up, and talk to them face to face and really find out what it is that grabs their attention. Like, what is something you have yet to do and that you think would be really valuable for the future?
Definitely a pop-up, but like kind of like going to more events, rubbing elbows, showing my face, letting people see my brand on me as well, while I also, you know, communicate and network with like different people. I'm not really or I haven't really been going to like New York Fashion Week or some of these events that maybe I should be at, you know. So that's something that I'm more like proactive on with this upcoming like year, like being out in more events and like meeting more people, working with more different diverse models and models from different regions and things like that. Definitely.
What would you say is something that's maybe holding you back a little bit?
Yeah, I would say,
is it the funding? Is it the credit? Is it?
It would be probably like if a bigger budget would probably make it. I don't think funding holds back the product, because we can put out great product. We put out great product. We put out nice quality product. I think funding holds back more of the marketing aspect and the advertising aspect, because with that it's a lot that you have to put into that, but also you have to you learn as you're doing that. That's something I would want to probably bring someone on a board to our team to work on that aspect of things. Also to being more in front of the camera, like, and being more of a communicative person. I think that would be something that would help me.
Definitely. One thing I thought about, I Lost it. It was just there. So we were talking about, doing business, analytics, email lists. I'm trying to think about, because I had a good question for you. I'll cut this piece out. But
I think it was like I was talking about advertising.
right. So you were talking about financing and your budgets and your credit line. So I want to ask you, like, how do you decide what to invest into, and like what percentages? Like, what's your advertising budget? What's your administrative budget? Like, how do you do all that budgeting? Do you do budgeting?
We sit together as a team, and we, like, me and Shalise, we'll sit together as a team, and we'll focus on like how much should be spent on what, and basically what outcome do we want from how much we're investing into it. Like, what's a kind of like an estimate goal of what we're looking for.
And what would you say right now? Like, if you could just give percentages, what are you looking at? Are you doing like 30% advertising? Like, what would you say is like a really big thing for you right now?
I think the biggest piece would be production, because I want to always make sure like the clothes are like at a quality that's like respectable, and that I really like approve of, because I like wearing like the stuff, like if I'm putting it on, I want it to like, or if it represents me or my brand, I want it to be like top-notch quality. But advertising, I'm leaning more toward like that's a smaller piece of like my budget, but I'm trying to grow that part of my budget as well.
Right. I want to ask you, maybe, is there a company out there that you really admire and look after? The reason I even mentioned this is because my friends told me this story about the ice cream Van Leeuwen. Are you familiar? It's
you can elaborate more on.
Yeah, so there's this ice cream out here, and they have a few shops, Brooklyn, Lower Manhattan, and they have like lots of different flavors, but they're very like signature flavors. Like they might have like this honeycomb that they're known for. They might have this other, they're not like traditional flavors in a sense. But the whole reason I bring this up is because my friend was telling me the story about how this company focuses so much on research and development of their product. They hardly spend any money on advertising or product packaging. They actually had this artist just come and do like the product packaging, and it's very, very simple. Like, it's just like one color, the logo, that's it. Like, they spend so much money on research and development. So I want to ask you, maybe is there a company that you look after and you've noticed, okay, that sort of operating process or operating system works really well, and we want to try to replicate that? Yeah,
well, I take a lot, like, or look at a lot of different companies. Like, mainly, I think the people who have like their finger on the pulse of like doing that type of stuff is like tech companies, because they know how to like put a product. They don't really have to like really do too much as far as like getting a product out there. Some of the designs are sleek and simple. Even the advertising is just really like simple when you see it. Like an Apple, for instance, like Apple is like really, really good at like reeling in the customer without doing too much.
And would you say, so you're talking more about like the advertising side of it? Like, you think these tech companies are really something to look at from the tech side?
Yeah.
I mean, from the advertising side?
Yes. Yeah.
And what's something maybe you've tried to replicate yourself? Is it doing small like videos because you've noticed those worked? Like, what's the tactic?
So like the campaign visuals, like keeping them short, telling a story in them, keeping them short and to the point, and then at the end letting you know, okay, this is the brand where it's from.
Definitely. I want to ask you, because you talked about materials and the quality of your clothing. What makes an item luxury to you?
I think what makes an item luxury is like the meaning behind it, and the significance that it has to the consumer, the person who's buying the item.
Right.
It's not really the price point. It's really like the significance you give the item. Like, it's certain pins that I have, right? And it's like, I look at this pin like it's like a luxury item because of the value it has to me, like, or what it means to me, or I might like how it writes better than a Bic pen or something like that, you know? Like, that's how I look at luxury.
Right. So I read something about you personally that was about kind of like time management, and that was something you struggled with. How would you say you're doing with it now? Is that something you've improved with, and how have you improved on that?
Yeah, I'm getting better with it. It's still something where, cause now I'm like block scheduling. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
Like I block schedule now. Before I used to just say, okay, I got to do this on this day, or I would have like the gym or reading, or I would have it like all day on my schedule. Now I have it to where it's like, okay, at 7:30 or 8:30, I'm doing this at this time. So it's better managed, because when I would have it all day, I'd be like, okay, I'll get to the gym probably 9 o'clock, or I'll get there when I get there. And then after a while, it's like I have all this stuff piled up for the week that I have to do, whether it's like putting a campaign together. I always want to make sure I go to the gym, always want to make sure I read, and always want to make sure I'm working on the company every day. So, but I would have it to where it's like it's not prioritized in different slots of the day. So to be like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then this is what I have to do. That's the most important, instead of just having it like in time slots.
Right. So having some sort of routine that you can commit yourself to, and know that these are the objectives you have to hit, and giving them the time and the space in your schedule in order to go do those things.
Because now it used to seem like unorganized. Now it's like a thing where it's like, okay, I'm putting this piece right here, putting this right here as well, and then after I leave from here, go here and do this. You know?
Definitely. I think I've asked a lot of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and you've given listeners and myself a lot of insight as to what you do and how you do it. So I want to ask you one last thing, is like, what advice would you give to somebody out there? What's something you want to leave with the listeners?
Well, I would say whatever you want to do, you start it as soon as possible. Start it now. You don't have to like do too much planning out. You know, some people take a long time planning out to the point where they don't even get to like accomplish what they want to accomplish, right? So I would say like start it, make your mistakes as you go. You know, start your stuff young as well, and you know, take your lumps, take your bruises, and grow with what you're doing. Make sure that you're learning from what you're doing. And if you feel like you're like kind of like stagnant in what you have going on, try to make a pivot, or try to add somebody along to be able to help you with your journey, you know.
Definitely. I appreciate you, 10 times for coming out here, coming and joining me, coming all the way from Philly.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Shalise and Kawaun, had the pleasure of talking to both of you today and getting all of your very valuable knowledge, and just really appreciate that. So last thing, how can people connect with you, support you, and tap into what you're doing?
All right. Well, with the brand, The Supermarket, you can visit the website at www.thesupermarket.online. So instead of .com is .online. Instagram is The Supermarket Co. And if you want to personally follow me, or hit me up about anything, or work with me or anything, my social media handles is Gimmewaun, so it'll be GIMMEWAUN, and that's about it.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to link all that stuff in the episode description, so that we can have people tapped in with you and following along with your journey.
All right. So, again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. Really, thank you. Thank you, listeners, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to go show some love to Kawaun, and also go ahead and follow us on Instagram to stay up to date with new episodes dropping. Thanks so much.